On this episode, we're rewiring the 92 Ducati 900 SS. But you'll have a baseline of what wires go where and what changes you have to make to your switches in order to get this to function. On a difficulty scale, I'm going to put this in the hard range only because of all of the variations in modifying switches and rerunning wires to make a switch. So we had to, well, and the horn got me, but that was my fault because the wire was broke. But what you're used to from the factory wiring diagram really doesn't apply when you're using this, because now the key is a switch. So one side of the key goes to ground, the other side comes over here and activates these things. Same thing with the horn, the start button. The start button has to be rewired. The rear brake switch has to be rewired. This is the completed assembly. I wasn't going for a beauty contest. I could have done it a little bit differently and made it look better, but I'm going to save that for version 2. Just find one thing that you like about the video and then hit the like button. How's that? So I got this kit from Revival Cycles in Austin, Texas, and then I also ordered their wiring kit and their loom kit. There's downloadable instructions for the MO-Unit. This one is the blue, so it's Bluetooth capable, and we can program it with our phone to do funny things. So all I've done so far is take the fairings off, took the hood off, took the fuse box loose, disconnected the battery. So this is going to power all of the accessories, or things, lights, horn, blinkers, start, the stuff. It's going to do the things. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of these relays, and we're going to minimize the wiring harness. I'm going to try to take it slow so y'all can watch and maybe figure something out that I'm doing wrong. It'd probably be a good idea if you had a wiring diagram. So this is out of the Haynes manual, and this is mine, 92 SS, 91 to 93 models. So this has all of our wire routing from where to what and why. So some of the things that we aren't going to mess with, we're not going to mess with the pickups from the stator running to the rectifier. We're not going to mess with the coils and all of those things. We just make sure they get power, and then those systems are running independent of the MO-Unit, I think. But yes, I know. So I think what we'll do is, so let's see if we take DURM unit, it fits right here. I just saved you having to build a bracket. You watch me do it wrong, and then you don't have to suffer like I did. So this doojab will fit right here on this bracket where they had all of these wires plugged in. So I'll give you a look. It's like it was made for it. It's a good fit. So if you think about what we're doing here, all of this is going to the back of the bike. This is all going to get plugged in right here, basically, because that's what it's for. And then these are going to get plugged in on this side, and all of this gets cut off, gone. So our relays, our relays, our fuses, all of that stuff is in here, plus more. So there's enough wire here to twist this around and plug it in. We cut the tips off, put on our little ferrules, and tick, 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 and we're done. So it's almost over. Let's put it that way. I'm almost finished. Not really. Thing number one. I know it looks like a mess. This is the plug for the dash. So I'm going to reuse some of this. This is my ground block. And it's for the lights, right? Turn signals, headlight, dash lights, and then the connectors for the, we'll just call them warning lights. The next thing. So when you're looking at your wiring diagram, there's colors for every wire. And they're, well, let's just say they're mostly right, okay? I'm working on a 30-year-old motorcycle. I don't know, who did what to it before I got it. So some of the things are different or not the same or altered. I don't know. So this is the plug for this side. The colors coming out of the turn signal are not the same as these. So this is what plugs into it from the factory. So this is correct. So you got to kind of keep this handy. And then the same thing for the other side. So if we look at this, it's blue, brown, and red. And it plugs in here. And this one is green, red and white, and yellow and red. So when you're looking at your diagram and you're looking for the brown wire, it's not up there. So you're going to have to, keep this until you're done with that part, I guess. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put power to the M-Unit. So it requires a hot lead from the battery. Now then, over here, you have your battery cable that goes down to the solenoid, down to the starter. And then you have another hot lead. Well, this bike has another hot lead, and it has two wires coming out of it. One of them goes here, and one of them goes here. So these are both hot all the time when the battery's connected. And they went to in around over here where that fuse block was, to where the or where the relay was. And so I'm gonna reuse this, and I'm gonna plug it in here, and that'll be my hot lead. Now I know what you're saying. Yes, I know. I will put a fuse in the way. These two pigtails with the 3 prongs control, let's just say, the motor side. Power to the engine, coils, power from the stator. This one is turn signals and whatnot, and this one is accessories and whatnot. I don't know what a whatnot is, but I just use that as an example. Let me build a wire connection here first. I'm gonna strip this back so I get a little bit more bendability out of it and get some put my fuse block in there, and then we can start hooking power up. Yeah, because we're dealing with factory switches. When you're using the factory switches, the wiring routing from this thing is a little bit different. Enough talking, get your ass to work. Okay, I'm going to work. Whoa. Okay, so yeah, I'll show you. So hot lead, this is fuel pump. Listen, fuel pump's on. So we know this is fuel pump and we know this is ignition. This is what makes it go. These ones, this is charging system. So if we plug this back in, we're gonna get power to this one. The other one, we'll figure it out. I probably should have figured that out first. Okay, so we have power to the unit. It's a little jacked up, so screw it, we'll cut it off. So this is power, and I'm pretty sure this is a ground. So if I give myself some gas, we should be able to do two things. One is we could hook a test light up here, and then see this is grounded. We could hook a test light up here and see this is grounded, right? So if we test light here, this one is 0. This is our stator feed, but this is a hot lead, this is a ground. So I'm going to unplug this again. So this ground, we're going to hook to the unit itself. We can do that two ways. We could go to the top or we could go to the bottom, because I'm bolted through right here. And I got enough length to where I could go either side. So this will give me a chassis ground here and also a battery ground here, and it'll just, you know, I think that'll work out okay. And somebody's gonna ask, so I'll show you, why didn't you put it under the seat? Where am I gonna put it? This is all plastic. I mean, you could mount it to the plastic, but I don't have the plastic under the seat, and you know, this gets wet. But to me, it makes sense because this is where all the wires are at. So it's a shorter run from here to here than having to run wires all the way back to there and then split them up and run them back up to wherever they're going. So I can reutilize all of the factory wiring, and then there's less wiring is the way I look at it, because I can take this and plug it in right there and plug this in right here, and everything's shorter, and you know, to me it just makes a little bit more sense. So I have power and I have a ground from battery. So the unit is grounded to the frame and the unit is grounded to the battery. And that's what we want. So I still have my stator lead. This is another hot lead. And then we have fuel pump and ignition. So if we look at this, this is the switch, the keyed switch, right? Let's call it lock. This is the lock. If we look at the lock, we really only have 4 wires coming off of it. You got 6 going in. This blue one and red with a white stripe, I don't know what they do. But the red is our power lead. The yellow ones are all of the lights. I mean, this runs the dashboard, headlights, the works. One of these hits the fuel pump. Let me figure that out. Yellow goes the lights. Orange goes the lights. Okay. Red goes to the relay. Red's going to go to the unit. Red and white goes to the relay switch. Turn it on. So working on the lock side of the M unit. So power comes into the switch, the key switch, from the red wire. Power goes into the switch, and then when you turn the switch on, power comes out of this green with a black stripe. But when you use on the connector side, it's red in, red and white out. So we're going to run power from the unit straight to this red wire from the battery side. And then we're going to take this one and run it to the lock tab over here. So what'll happen is when we turn the key on, it'll turn over here and tell the unit to turn on so that it knows to go. So let me do that. So they supply you with ferrules in the kit. You could just stick the wire in. So this one is for the lock. This green with a black stripe. Now we have to find it. And it looks like it's the first one, but let's double check. Yes, lock. Stator wire. The stator was already wired. It was working. Everything was working before I started this maniac mess. But it has to be connected to the system. So stator wire goes here and plugs into ignition on switch. Why? 12 volts. So it'll get the full charge from the stator, from the regulator rectifier, to keep the battery going. Now then, when I turn this on, I have power here now. And so my little doodad's lit up here, and then my ignition and my auxiliary are lit up. So we need to do ignition. There's a whole lot of variables for the Motogadget unit. Push button, all of that other kind of stuff. We're using factory switches. So what we want is power to the ignition system controlled by our switch here. Off, run, off. This wire, which is brown because it goes to ignition, and then these wires, which one of them's the off switch, the run switch, and the other one's the start switch. So what we want is we're going to take power out of the M unit. It's going to flow out of the output side into the switch. So then this lead will be coming from the output side. This lead will be hot. And so then the hot wire from the switch is going to run over here to our brown wire and turn our ignition on. So when we flip it, it'll turn off. It's not open. And then we close the switch, and then it'll send power to ignition to turn on the coils and make them go boom. The fireboxes. Remember that, red and white, power out. Red and white is power out. Red and white goes to brown, which is, okay, red and white is power out, which is brown. It's not hard. None of this is hard. Blue and red goes to starter. So that's the yellow and red wire. And I'm just clipping it because I'm not using it again. So this will go to our start function in on our unit. I ran the ignition switch through here, right? Because there's two wires. There's a green and this red and white. Green and black and red and white. And then for starter, what it is the starter button takes power from the green button and sends it to the yellow and red. But that's not the way this thing works. Sorry. This thing wants a ground signal to activate the unit on the start. So like a regular old push button where you push the button and it grounds out against the frame and then the wire's connected. I'll show you. I'll demonstrate. I'm not making this up. So I have the starter connected to the starter pin, and then this is just a jumper. So if I plug jumper in to the start button or the start input, here it is. If I come over here and touch it to my ground, turn the key on, it wants to start. But what happens is with the way I had it configured, or the way this switch is configured, when you hit this button, you're making a connection between yellow and red and green. So I got a workaround, and I've been working on this particular spot, this switch, for 4 hours. Is I'm going to cut this green and black jumper from here, and then I'm going to strip all this off, of course. I said something wrong and the camera turned off. And then I'm going to take this green wire that I'm going to cut, and I'm going to run it to ground. That way when I push this button, it activates ground, and it's going to start this motorcycle. You're going to see it happen. Let me do that, and then I'll come back, and hopefully I did it right. Okay, I moved you because you've been in my way this entire time. So what I did is, this is my starter lead, start button. This is my start button ground. So now the start button is just a ground switch. And then these two is the pathway for the kill switch. So think of the kill switch as a loop. This turns it off, this turns it on. And then because I had it, I pulled off the old factory stuff and I put on the stuff I got from Revival Cycles out of their kit. It's a little bit nicer because it's new. So on our output side, we'll go into number 4. I put the ferrule on this one and it helps. You're dealing with thin wire, it's kind of hard to get it into the little slot. But what you do is, I'm gonna have to move. Sorry, I can't do it backwards, but I can do it this way. I'll try to stay out of the way. So what you do is you grab your little wire doojab. First, let me take this one out. I'll show you. So you just push this little pin down a little bit. And well, it's this little orange thing. Push it in, and then your wire will pop out. So this has been my jumper lead for the past several hours while I was trying to figure out how to make this start button work. And so I think I finally have. Before I hook this up, let me strip this and put a splicer on there and strip this and put a ring terminal on it. I need this brown wire. Brown wire goes to coils, ignition. I was just about to say this was a bad idea. Sorry, I lost hope there for a minute. So what I'm going to do is, I'm taking this yellow and red and maybe orange, and then you take it here. Sorry, I gotta get in the way. Push this in, clamp it down. The skinny green and black is my ignition lead, so it's gonna go up here in the 4th hole. Just like that. Power comes out of here, number 4, runs through this green and black, up to the switch. Up to the switch. And then back through the switch to this pink and brown wire. My start button is just a ground. So it's open. And I'm going to hook this ground up to this ground lug. Okay, so when I turn the key on, my phone's going to talk because I hooked up the Bluetooth app. So I got juice, right? So if I come over and touch the coil, I got 11 volts, 1127 and 1094 because it's dropping fast. Keep that on there. It's in the run, and when I turn it to off, it goes to 0. So ignition's dead. Turn it on, and we're good, right? Now, if I hit this start button, it's gonna turn over, and since the ignition's on, it might start. Kill it, right? So this machine is not looking for voltage, it's looking for a ground. So you had to flip it. So that's why I went over there and took it apart and soldered in a wire, and now we're good. So that means that our stator is pushing power to the regulator rectifier, and it's going to the battery and it's charging it up because the voltage was climbing when we rev it up. So we have voltage. These things are leftovers from the ignition switch. We only needed 2 of them. And what we can do is we can plug one of these into the auxiliary over here, and then plug the other one in over here and use it for like lights when you turn the bike on. But there's also a lights section. So the next thing we need to get plugged in to that needs power is our fuel pump. So you can hear it run. So we could just take this, cut it, put a ferrule on it, and plug it into any one of these, and it'll go when the key's on. And that's the way it was before. So that's probably what I'm going to do now. So here's the next for instance. So there's 2 wires coming out of the brake light switch. One of them is going to run to ground, and the other one's going to run to here. And then output goes from here to this loom that runs the lights. So we're going to have a splice come in because you got a front brake switch and a rear brake switch. I mean, technically you could run with just a front or just a rear. You know how it goes. If you don't want to drag the brake. If you're a rear brake scrub the speed off guy and you don't want to appear to be, you could do that. So shut up and do some work, huh? Okay. So next up is fuel pump. Got electrical power. Now I need vane juice. So turn unit off. Unit's off. I'm gonna come over here. And I think I'm just gonna go into the next one's available. Because why not? So that was pretty easy. So now 2 things are going to happen. I'm going to turn the key on. This thing's going to cycle through. My phone's going to tell me my motorcycle's on. And the fuel pump's going to come on. So that's 3 things.
Ready.
That's nothing happened. Does I need to fire it? Yes. Low battery reported. That's pretty cool. Fuel pump's on. Fuel pump came on after we hit the go button. Turn it off. Turn it on. No fuel pump. I like that. Hit this. Fuel pump on. I like that. It's also adjustable. We can go in the app and have that thing turn on with key power. So if we look over here, we have all of these wires. This is from our right side, left side. I'll get it straight. I'm looking at the right side, but it's on the left side. This is our clutch side, okay? These wires coming out of this doodad do not correspond to the wiring diagram. These wires do. So when you plug this in, and I cut some of these off already, I may be in trouble. When you're looking at the wiring diagram and you're looking for the horn button, the horn switch is solid green, which is this one. Okay? But when you come up and go across, it's this top gray wire. So next is, I want to do the horn real fast, and then I'm going to call it a night. The horn mounts right here, and there's plenty of space. I'm going to wire this. The horn was tied into the brake light switches for some reason. I don't know why. Italians. Blue and gray coming out of the wiring harness here, right? So when I checked it on the bike, I'd accidentally split this, so I wasn't getting a connection. So now I know what I'm doing. Blue and gray for the horn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is horn. Horn in. Purple is horn out. That should be it.
Right, ready.
That's cool. Okay, so coming out of the factory loom here from the switch gear, we're using the gray wire for the horn into the input. The blue wire is ground. So then this purple wire from the horn runs to the output to the horn. And then we grounded the horn to this bolt. To review, this is the pigtail coming out of the switch controller. These wires do not match the wiring diagram, but it matches this. So I'm plugging in and working backwards. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm cutting them off as I go. Except for that brown one. I cut that one way too soon. So this is the left side of the bike. I'll keep saying that too. And we're looking for white and black. So there's a white and black here. That one's white. So white and black is left turn signal rear. White with a black stripe. Left rear turn. So this one, white with black stripe, is the front right turn signal. This is our factory plug for our gauge cluster. These are the rest of the wires that go in there. This is what we're working on now. This is headlight, green and white is right turn, black and white is left turn. So this is going to mount somewhere over here, right? Remember? And for now, I'm just going to hang it like this. So a couple of things is the clicker's over here. The clicker has to run 2 light bulbs at the same time, and it also has to run the turn signal indicator in here. So the wire from the back, the wire from the front, and the wire from the gauge. So gauge is grounded here, light bulb's grounded here, power to the bulb here. But we're gonna have to get all 3 of these together in order to make this side function. I gotta get power for my switch, and it was this black and white wire, which on this side is blue. So left turn coming out of the switch gear is blue, and that runs to the input side on right turn, left turn. Left turn is number 3. So left turn was blue. And I want to come in like this, behind that, and in front of that. Left turn is blue. So now I have to do these white with black stripe. If you don't solder, you could still do this using these Wago connections. So they just flip up, put your wires in, they lock them down, and then you would have this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solder these 2 connections together like this, and then I'm going to take this one, I'm going to run it along like this, solder it here, and then we'll leave this long so that it plugs in there. So this sometimes works. See? And then I'm going to need a ground, and I think I'll just do one for each circuit. That way, what? They're removable. I think the other thing that's acceptable, instead of putting up with those stupid ferrules, is put some tin on it. So this one goes to our output. Left turn. Number 3. Green with white stripe. Right here. And so over here on green with white stripe, which is right turn signal. If we look at the wiring diagram, I know it's hard for you to see. Switch gear for the left side. Turn signal switch, light switch, dimmer switch. Turn signal has this pink wire that runs over to the relay. Now, I don't know that we need that anymore. So this should have been power from the relay, or, you know, blinker stuff from the relay. So it was power source. So now that it's not there, should it be a ground? Because obviously it's what makes the connection between those two. So the lights are grounded, this is grounded. I don't know about the pink wire. So either there's nothing happening in there, and pink wire turned into dark blue, which is this one. I need signal from input side, not output side. So blue wire coming out of the switch gear is going to be a ground. Light blue is right. So that means left is red. And it goes first. And my little stabby thing, I keep freaking losing. I have power. That one works. That one works. I want to do the brakes next. I really do. But I'm kind of traumatized because brakes are... So I need a purple brake switch. A purple and black right here. Cool. And a gray with red. A gray with red. Purple and black, which also ties into the horn for some reason in the factory thing. So brake pedal switch, goes to purple wire, purple black, and runs up to the horn and the brake pedal and the brake pedal. All right, one thing at a time. Purple and black. I'm gonna run this in. So there's a purple and black here. We're gonna use that for our input. And then this gray and red is gonna be ground. But if I use this purple and black from the rear switch, this purple and black from the front switch, tie those together. This switch works because why? There's an input and an output, and it goes to light. On the brake pedal, the brake pedal has two wires coming up. So it has this purple and black, and then it's tied in to this output side, to the light, right here. So for the Motogadget, it wants a ground and an input. And so the input is past the switch, past the unit down there. So it's not working. Two options. Run without a brake pedal, brake light, which is fine, just use your hand. But I don't really want to do that. Rear brake switch. So key on, rear brake works. See the reflection on the door. Key off. The rear brake switch is purple and black, gray with red. And they come up here and run along and then go that way and come out over there. So the red with gray ties into the other lead, the output side. So that switch is not able to operate it because it doesn't have a ground. So you want a lead in and a ground. And then it'll push power out of that where you put the pin in. So I traced this wire, the gray with red stripe, ties into the other wire here. That wire runs all the way back to the brake light. Step down here, brake light works. I'll show you. So the purple wire coming from the brake light switch runs through here. And then the gray wire for the brake light switch runs through here. The other gray wire, which is my light the light wire, the output wire, runs straight back. So cut off the insulation, of course, but I did that a long time ago. And then this wasn't long enough. I didn't have any gray with a red stripe. I just had plain gray. And then I took the purple and ran it around and made it a ground. So now ground for brake light switches is purple and power is gray with red stripe plus this gray. So the switch has to be powered by the unit. One line in, one ground. I know it's ugly, but we're not finished yet. We're just getting warmed up. So then run it around, pigtailed it into this red, gray with red stripe. And so that's my input side from the switch. Took a little bit to figure out, but got it figured out. Kind of like the horn. So tail light coming out is yellow. It brakes and it jumps around on this gray and red, but I'm pretty sure that it's just going to keep going to yellow, and I'm going to find out the hard way. So it runs all the way up, and then it junctions in here with the ignition switch for turn it on, and then it runs across and it powers all of these three lights and these three lights and the dash lights and the light switch. Dashboard lights are all grounded themselves, right? Side stands are ground, oil pressures are ground. The no charge light, I don't know about. It doesn't have a ground. Maybe it's grounded somewhere else. We're not using these that I can tell. But remember, when we turn the key on, and these two have continuity. Key off, they're off. So I'll use one of these for a ground, and this will be my power in switch, and then power out will be to all of the things. We got to go to this with power out, tail light with power out. So I'm going to ground with gray. Turn this key off. Yes. So we have continuity from the frame to this lead. That makes it a switch. When we turn this off, it turns off. Okay. This one gets plugged into the light socket. And that is right after brakes. And then we were trying to figure out lights, right? So we hooked up the ignition to ground, well, the key to ground, and then we got the yellow one. If it's yellow, it's a light, basically. Yellow from ignition, key on is input, then output is going to be lights. So the blue wire, this blue wire coming out of your gauge cluster, information center, whatever you want to call it, needs power. There's also a blue wire that comes up from the wiring harness. It will be hard to see like that, like this. So blue wire used to have power coming out of the fuse box, and it went over and ran to your fuel pump. It's supposed to survive. It's supposed to provide power for the low fuel light switch thing. But it also runs down and goes to your neutral switch. And then it runs up and goes into the gauge cluster. On this one it says blue with black dash, but it's not. It's just light blue. This one is what powers these three bulbs, right? The oil pressure, no charge, side stand, and it also powers the neutral switch because it's blue. Neutral is a switch. Oil pressure is a switch to ground. So they're going to turn themselves on by themselves. And I don't know what the low fuel light does. I've never seen that before. I plugged them in from the wiring harness over here to the wiring harness back there. and I have a neutral light when I turn the bike on, and I have a low oil pressure light when I turn the bike on. And then when I put it in gear, the neutral light goes away, and when I start the bike, the oil pressure light goes away. Basically, the dashboard stuff for now is all just plug and play. So you take the corresponding wire over here and you hook it up to this one over here, except for the yellows. If it's yellow, take it out. So side stand, red and white, we already said no charge. Low fuel light, neutral light, and then speedo and tack bulbs. I shortened that harness up because I didn't like it, and so I got them sitting over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these wires and I'm going to connect them to all of these wires and get that part done, and then, and only then, will I start messing around with the headlights. I'm going to do this off camera because it's just cutting and splicing. I'm actually going to use butt splice joints. I'm not going to solder all these together. Zip ties are a wonderful thing. It will be an Eldest build zip tie moment. So again, with the wiring diagram, I've gone through and made changes to what I did, so I know for the next time, because I'm not going to remember. I mean, I can go back and watch the video. The headlight is coming out of this switch gear, right? Left side. It needs a ground and a power. So when you're looking at the cutoff pigtail, headlight is white and black coming out of the switch gear. Down below, it's white and yellow with a black stripe. Yellow with a black stripe is high beam, okay? Because it runs up here and goes into the gauge cluster and turns on the high beam light when you hit the button. So when we cut this off, this is going to be white will be high beam and black will be low beam. Green with a black stripe goes to the output side of the unit because power is going to flow into the switch and then flow out of these two wires. And I already checked it, so it works. Input side for the light comes from the key on. That was the yellow wire we took out of here. So when we turn the key on, we have power coming out of high beam. Right? Where's the box? So green with black stripes coming out of high beam, running through the switches, and then coming here. White is high beam, black is low beam. And then I will be done with this thing. And then this is the factory connection. So I could cut this and shorten it, but I'll just tuck it up out of the way. It was this big before, so there's room. And so then what I want to do is yellow and black is going to white, and then the white is going to the black. So it's backwards. And then my ground, of course my little plastic thing is broken because it's 30 years old. And then I got a ground over here somewhere. So the ones for the bulbs are not standard size, they're slightly larger. So the ones out of the kit, they don't fit. So I had to reuse this one. I cleaned it up, sandblasted it. I soldered the connection on, and then I had to splice it down here. So I just used one big long piece of sheathing, and then we'll just put a ring terminal on the end of it. These three go together, and those are the lights. Look at that. There's a headlight. There's a high beam. Can you see with the... Yes. Cool. The headlight's running a LED bulb, so it draws lower amps. So I think last thing is these three wires for lights. So this is tail light, speedo gauges, and honest, I don't know where this one goes. This one is for the side marker light. And I don't have those. So I don't need this one. I'll cut it off, roll it up, and get rid of it. But I got that. So this one and tail light. So this is gauge cluster. Yes. And then this one is for the tail light. And they'll need to go together. I mean, I like it like this because it's compact and everything's right here. If you put it, like I said before, if you put it over there, you got to run all these wires back there. And then you got to run all the wires back up front. So if you're building your own harness, you might want to do that. But for this, I'm just using the factory stuff. So it just made sense to me to stick it over here. Okay, so we were working on the lights, not light, headlight, the lights, tail light, dash light. I cheated, okay? I went to the auxiliary port and it works. I'm gonna take it all loose and I'm gonna tie it all up and then put it all back together. And I'm gonna take the dashboard off so I can get to this thing easier and get this stuff tied in. So the last thing I'm hooking up is this voltmeter with a dual USB. I got this extra hot lead from the battery. This one has a fuse in it. And so it just plugs in. Then I'm gonna run this lead up and over and around and through. So the last thing is this little beauty panel that went over here. So this is the cover, and the cover bolts to this. So it's a sandwich on the bike this way. And then this snaps on here. Put a plate on the bottom, and then you'd have like a little tray. So an old motorcycle license plate. And then for sealant, we're using Craggle. And then when you open it up, boom! Texas, y'all. I like the part when they were building this, they said, hey man, we got this post, you want to put a screw under it? And everybody's like, oh yeah, that's a great place for it. Yeah, none of the wires are touching. I'm gonna probably put it on upside down, didn't I? No. So there we go. Texas. Where's that bike from? Texas. So I'll give you a look after she's fully dressed. So you can see the wires down in there. And down here, you can see the wires there. And right there. But from a rider perspective, I think we're fine. I can live with it. It functions. Listen to my phone.
Mo-Ride ready.
Fuel pump's running. Now when I hit the turn signal, the blinking noise is coming out of my phone. So if we turn it on, we got headlight. I'll move. Headlight. High beam. Tail light. Brake light. Bulb. Bulb. So this thing has an automatic setting where it'll turn the blinker off. I have it set to, I don't know, 20 seconds or something. But I can change that in the app to what I want. But no more cruising down the road with your blinker on. So power's off. And then if I give it the guts, oil light goes off. Then you give it the fire. And we're making voltage because that gauge is wired directly to the battery. So the battery's picking up voltage from the stator, regulator, rectifier, and everything's functioning as it's supposed to. Now hit the like button. Because you gotta like it, look. It's gorgeous. So this is a follow-up to the completed install. Version 1. This whole thing is controlled by your phone. So the Mo-Unit is adjustable on your phone. There's a couple of things that I want to change, so I started goofing around with the app. So I can change the settings on the output for all of these things. I have the fuel pump wired into auxiliary 1, and I changed the setting from ignition on
Mo-Ride ready.
to start. So now the fuel pump's not on when I turn the bike on, but when I give it the start button, now the fuel pump comes on. So less initial power draw for starting purposes, and I kind of like that. And when it's connected to my helmet, I can hear it inside my ears. But it's on a timer, so it's only going to blink for 20 seconds. And then it'll turn itself off. So I wanted to show you one of the features of the Motogadget Blue. So here's the key. The Motogadget's connected to my phone. I haven't figured out how to stop it without using the key, but I can ride it without a key.